Assalamu alaikum, you're watching Views and News and I'm Fatima live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be once again talking about the Davos Economic Forum. That is the 47th World Economic Forum that is held every year in the third or sometimes in the fourth week of the first month, that is January. All the top head of states, they come and visit and they hold various discussions, they talk on various forums, they also hold sideline meetings. Other than that, the most important part is that this year, more than 1,000 CEOs and managing directors of various companies are also participating. So this is the place where mostly a lot of business deals are done. Davos, as we all know, is situated in Switzerland, the highest ski resort in Europe, and is one of the most beautiful places out there. The interesting part is this year, Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif went there along with his delegation, and also the former Chief of Army Staff, General Raheel Sharif, was also there. One of the most important agenda that was about countering terrorism, so he was the key speaker there. And he did talk about some various aspects, how to curb and how to counter terrorism. Because when we talk about fetching investments, though there are reports that the FDI over a period of time has increased by 10%, but 10% means nothing when you're having less than $1 billion in a year's time. I remember there was a time when we almost had about $8.5 billion in 2004 and 5, around 2004, 5 and 6. But unfortunately, because the primary reason which was given was the law and order situation in Pakistan, so the investor was pretty shy. And then we have witnessed that flight of capital was very obvious. Then brain drain was another factor. A lot of people moved their businesses, and especially I'm talking about the textile sector. They moved either to Bangladesh or Sri Lanka for that matter. So we had edge on a couple of products, but unfortunately we lost that. And then the most important issue that was the biggest hurdle in increasing our exports was the lack of energy. Though the government has done a lot, but still a lot more needs to be done. Obviously Pakistan is a growing economy, and according to the World Economic Forum, when you talk about the developing nations, out of those 79 developing nations, India stood at 60th. Pakistan was at 52nd. When you talk about Lithuania, that was number 1. You're talking about the Eastern European country. And then you talk about Romania, it was at 5. Hungary was at 3rd. Latvia was among the top 10. Then you talk about Chile, or you talk about Uruguay, and certain countries from the Latin American side. So what we have witnessed, that the top 10 countries which have shown tremendous growth were either from the Eastern European side, or they were from the this Latin American area. So primarily what we have understood is that though when you talk about the countries where Brazil is concerned, was very much behind China. China stood at number 15th, whereas you talk about Russia, that was in 30s as well. So when we talk about Pakistan, though there are a lot of problems, but there's some positive indicators as well. So what we'll try to do in our program, we'll definitely talk about the very important visit and a very important, I would say, statements given by General Raheel Sharif. Plus we'll be also talking about the engagements of the Prime Minister. Prime Minister has met the Swiss Prime Minister there as well, and he also held the meeting with the CEO of Alibaba Group there. And other than that, he's also going to address the business community. Around 60 of the top CEOs and MDs will be there, where the Prime Minister is going to present the case of Pakistan to fetch more investment. So primarily in today's program, we'll be talking about the investment opportunities that we have in our country. Obviously, the case is there, but the way it's marketed, the way it's presented, that really holds the real value. We have with us in our studio to talk about that. On my right is Dr. Noor, Fatima, a known economist. Needs an introduction, sir. Thank you very much, ma'am, for taking out your time and being a part of our show. We also have with us Salman Bittani Saab. He's from the School of Politics and International Relations, Quaid-e-Azam University, Islamabad. Thank you very much, Bittani Saab. And in a little while, we'll be joined in by Banday Saab, who's another economist, and we'll be talking about various aspects and various avenues regarding the investment opportunities in Pakistan. Start off from you, Dr. Noor Fatima. We have had so many talk shows on this particular issue. But when it comes to investment, and especially in the large-scale manufacturing, I'm not talking about the stock market for that matter. We have seen there's a significant decline. Obviously, two major reasons, as I earlier mentioned. One was about law and order, and second was about the lack of energy. And third, if you do not, though we do consider it, but like lack of interest for some reason. Because when you talk about being competitive, I guess there are a lot of other countries like Bangladesh or Sri Lanka, I'm talking about the region, they seem to be much more competitive as compared to Pakistan. Where did we lose the edge, ma'am?
Actually, cost of doing business was the major thing at that time, if you look at the competitiveness. And energy was the major factor. Now we, at least in this projection of 2017, the major thing which is coming up for the growth of the economy is the investment. Positively, there is keen interest shown by the international investor, particularly when we had this CPEC.
Correct.
This is a major turning point in Pakistan's economic history for the last since 70 years that Pakistan is going to attract. And now Pakistan is not going to present its case just in the shadow of this terrorism and just that they are improving their other economic indicators, but Pakistan is presenting its case in the light of this $43 billion coming from the state away from a country. And that is, of course, China. So law and order situation is improving. We had this operation. Energy situation is improving. Now there is a lot
especially
of
for the industrial sector.
Industrial sector.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, if you look at this government performance, like for instance, since 2013 to 2017, there is a significant difference in the growth indicators also. So that is also making some difference. For instance, GDP, for instance, inflation, for instance, this foreign investment also, foreign remittances for that matter. Yeah. So this all has to be translated into this is a growth indicator, but it has to be translated into development. And when it comes to the development, the major development comes through the foreign investment, foreign manufacturers, foreign entrepreneurs. They have to give you jobs. They have to absorb
because
skilled
investment
labor.
comes in and brings in a lot of
skilled
jobs.
Labor,
yes, you're right.
And our youth, which is 60% of our population. Yes. So this now, as we say, this is the time when there is a war of trade. And as the Chinese president today, he has said that nobody is going to win that war, because that war has to be between for interconnectedness between the different nations. So if you stay in this war, you will win. If you are going towards protectionism, basically you are outside this whole competition. So investment is openness, and openness is basically giving a signal to the foreign investment, that foreign investor, that you can come to this country and you can have a secure investment, and then not only secure investment on the basis of IMF reforms, but on the investment which we have already got through a country of $43 billion.
Now, that's a very important factor which we have mentioned about the IMF reforms, or the sort of pressure which countries like Pakistan or the developing nations in general, they have because of IMF or the World Bank, or for that matter, Asian Development Bank in our case. So they put a lot of, and then these terms and conditions, I mean, that is another headache, I would say.
We are not forced now.
We're not forced now, because once you grow, and then those stakes, I mean, they're reduced to an extent. But anyway, first of all, let me introduce Banday sir. Thank you very much, sir, for taking out your time and being a part of the show. Earlier, we were talking about the Davos summit, sir, and we were talking about the investment in general. But let me first put this question to you, sir. Bittani sir, now a couple of factors. When you talk about investment, it is believed, it's a fact, that if the local investor is shy for some reason, or is not happy with the current circumstances or the prevailing conditions for that matter, why would a foreign investor come into Pakistan? Despite the fact that they own 100% equity, they have a sovereign guarantee in dollars as far as their trade is concerned. You look at the rate of return that hovers around 30 to 40%, and that's not a joke, that's huge. Despite that, countries like Bangladesh is fetching more, Sri Lanka is fetching more. Forget about India, it's a larger economy, obviously. In your opinion, I mean, let me rephrase the same question which I've earlier asked the lady. What is your take, sir?
Well, we need to see the global perspective first. Global perspective in the global politics, things are not at a very good juncture. The ghost of nationalism and the ghost of protectionist ideologies is coming back. So this Davos conference is seen as a very important event because it is not only kind of a stage for influential domestic leaders who are participating, but there is this transformation of world market economy from westernized model to a model which is more of being looked at from the Chinese perspective. So that's why Xi Jinping was being the focus and his remarks were the focus, because you see World Economic Forum and forums like these, they are a reflection of globalization, liberal economic order, and entry of Xi Jinping particularly, and these, as you earlier mentioned, the Latin American states and the Eastern European states, they had this different color of economic model that they believed in. So bringing this perspective to localized context, as you questioned, local investors must not be shy, because local investor will be bearing the fruits of this economic transformation that is taking place. As ma'am mentioned that CPAC is coming, so I would just refer to this development of Brexit. Some analysts are of the view that UK is, yes, domestically it has been hurt by Brexit, but UK is thinking of coming back to Asian markets. It is coming back to, it is staging a comeback as it staged a kind of economic coup 150 years back. You see people in United Kingdom, they are saying that they are pretty much interested in investing in this corridor. So definitely,
I mean, their foreign minister, foreign secretary was over, and he said that we want to be a part of CPEC.
we want. It means that their foreseat, being a student of international politics, we all know that the foreseat of British strategists, political thinkers, political ideologues has been phenomenal. So they are foreseeing something, definitely. So local investors, I think they have their own equal level playing field. They'll get benefited from this turn of the century, from geopolitics, geostrategy to geoeconomics. And for Pakistan, I think this is a very good omen. Pakistan has, I think, they have bared the brunt of bad times. We have seen bad times. It's been 14, 15 years we have been fighting.
Yeah, post 9/11.
And post 9/11. Yes. The world is witnessing all those issues, they are facing the music now, the music of migration, the music of conservatives coming to power. People are really afraid of Trump, as in what kind of president he would be. Even Native Americans are afraid of him. So Pakistan has kind of dealt with these murky waters. We are coming out of it. That's a very positive sign.
Especially, when your former chief of army staff, I think, who led from the front, General Rahil Sharif, he said that there was a time when, we would have 150 bomb blasts in 1 month. And now they've been reduced to 1. So you can well imagine the kind of, though we have given a lot of sacrifice, but still at least now things are getting a lot better.
I would want to add that, this presence of our former military general, General Rahil Sharif, is very important. It is very significant and symbolic. I think now we can become leaders, as we can say that we are the nation, our military is that military who has dealt with a non-traditional threat. They have fought a non-traditional war, which the world is struggling.
Sir,
so we are selling this thing, and
this is of Afghanistan. Yes. Again, because Pakistan's stability is directly related with the Afghan stability, whether in terms of economy or in terms of politics. If there is political stability in that part, that is going to have its impact over here. And when you talk about war on terror, so 100 billion to 120 billion means that almost 40% of your present GDP. So that means if we have sort of seen that kind of a loss, investors did not come in, and we actually, that was the pressure on us or our own economy. But we have gone through that stage. So that means that we have got still a lot of potential. Now things will settle down, and it is not going to give you fruit in another year's time or so. This is going to be maybe 7 years, 8 years, 10 years down the line, and then followed by whatever happens at that time. You know, you need to have a vision, you need to be very practical. Now, Banday Saab, since you understand economy very well, the basic question which I earlier had asked the lady and the gentleman here was about the investment flow in Pakistan. There was a time investor was coming in. The kind of, I would say, incentives the government has offered to the foreign investor, I think they are the best in the world at the moment, sir. A lot of people do say that, you know, we shouldn't have given them that kind of leverage. If you look at India, I mean, they have certain terms and conditions. Over here, we just want them to come. Still, we do not see that kind of investment pouring into Pakistan, in any sector for that matter. Though we have got an edge over other countries as far as textile industry is concerned. But I think we do not have it. Have is the wrong word. We had it. Do you agree, sir?
Actually, I think so. What my colleague has been talking about is about the politics of this economy also, and he's talking about that politics has improved.
It's all about political economy, sir.
Exactly, politics have improved. But as from the economic point of view, what is my take on this is numbers speaks for themselves. As you are talking yourself, that the flow is not coming. I can't see that flow coming in. Everybody's talking about positive about Pakistan. Everybody's talking about CPAC. So what's the catch? One need to understand that you are not the only country in this world. Yes, you are a large country, 200 million people, but you are in a small economy. You're not a very large economy in per capita basis. It means the purchasing power which you are offering. And you are competing with 190 other economies. Now, what is important for us to understand? That how the flow is going in those economies, in which sector it is going, and what is their strategy to bring that money over there. It could be Latin America, it could be Africa, it could be Far East. Now, you have to see what is the method in the madness. Now, Pakistan, if it's attracting below $1 billion, so I will give you an example that Vietnam in the same year, which has a population lower than half of Pakistan, has attracted over $10 billion. And likewise, Thailand.
And our economic growth 10 years ago was much better than Vietnam. We were number 3.
And look at Thailand, and now Thailand is attracting about $15 billion. You talk about Malaysia, which has a 1/4 of the population, it's attracting over $17 billion of amount. Now, this is an amount which you have to look. Now, even if going from a lower base, and you talk about 100% increase, how much money you're going to get it? 2 billion. Now, people are talking about CPAC. In CPAC, if you know, the equity element is small, which is going to record in your inflows. The equity amount will be small. The bulk amount will be in loans. It's the same way the Chinese have basically invested, or you can say finance, their infrastructure projects around the world. Which are the two leading institutions from China which are financing these infrastructure projects? Exim Bank and China Development Bank.
Yes, that's correct.
They are the two major banks. So these banks don't put equity into projects. They mostly go for the financing, long-term financing. Nothing bad in it. The point is this, the countries which are taking loans from the Chinese bank are not sitting on the laurels. I mean to say that if Malaysians are attracting money from them, so they are pitching it to other countries that look, we have opened a company, come and invest over here. Now you are talking about that foreign secretary from the UK or from other countries, they want to be a part of CPAC.
Correct.
That could be political statements. What is more important as a Pakistani, that where is that British multinational company coming into it? Where has the sign, the contract has been signed? Where those Swedes company, where the Finnish, where even the Thai or Malaysian? Now that is my approach should be. I will be focusing, look, CPAC is there. I need hardcore money from the investors to come in the real economy. I don't want this stock market to go through the roof. What is more important for me, that I want to have every month 10 new IPOs coming into the market. Now there where your employment generation
They used
will
to,
come.
if you remember, they used to.
There where the
National Public Offering
employment generation will be there. That is the question which we need to ask. We should not be going with the rhetoric. As an economist, I'm totally focused what is the number coming onto the ground. Unfortunately, they are not there. And not serious work is being going on that. We are more into the flow of that euphoria of CPAC.
Now, say another point before I move on to the lady. When you talk about the stock market, for that matter, it's hovering around 49,000 points, right? So that's huge. And look at the economy on the other side. The way the economy has seen the growth. I mean, sometimes it was around 3.4%. Now the reports is going to be around 5.5%, 4.5%, well under the digit 6, and that should be the minimum. Ideally, it should be around 8 to 10%, but let's keep it at 6. That would have been that. But we have seen a decline in the agricultural side, sir. If you go through the report, that budget document, we are primarily totally depending on the services sector. That is almost 60 to 65% of our economy, ma'am, 2/3. But we are still not working on human capital. This is the world of competitiveness, sir. You grow the best possible cotton, you need to have the best machine and you need to have an operator. So value addition, that is what my point is. That element was missing, is missing, and it seems will be missing because we do not have the capacity, neither we have done enough on the workforce, sir, to make them efficient.
Now, it is very well reflected in the competitive index. If you look at this same World Economic Forum, which we are quoting for this inclusive development index that Pakistan is beaten.
Correct.
And if you look at the competitive index, we are in the bottom pit. We are out of 140 countries, our ranking is 126, 127. For the last few years, you can look at that. India is into 90s and 80s.
They're improving on that ground.
China is going into 30s. Now it's going into the larger countries. Now that should be our target. Like it very really reflect in this value addition part, which you are talking about.
Yeah.
And value addition part, like you're talking about service industry, mind this thing, majority of now developing countries have major portion coming from the service industry. It's not only Pakistan. The only exception, bigger exception is China, which are about 50% of the GDPs through the industry. And agriculture is contributing about 8-9%, and rest is with the service sector, 42-43%. Now that is a very peculiar, but that's another story how China achieved that part. What is important for us, as you have highlighted, stock market you were talking about also. When you're talking about stock market, you need to see that capitalization of the stock market with the GDP.
That's correct, sir.
Now, if you look at the GDP, our GDP and ratio is very low as compared to India. India has it has reached 100%. China is also near to 100%. Their GDP to their stock market. If you look at the US or in the UK, it's over 100%. Even in the Malaysian market. Now, they are the important numbers to understand the role capital market is playing in their economy.
I mean, Nikkei, look at Japanese, look at FTSE for that matter.
Exactly. Now, the point is this, that what I have seen that you don't ask the right questions out in this country. You are more important that you pick one figure and you start trumpeting it. What is more important to ask the right questions? That is it really matter? I mean to say, are we really the best stock market? Is it really contributing to the economy?
The word which you use is they say, the best performing stock market in the world.
What they are doing in absolute number, they are looking at the capitalization in the index, and they say that our index is so high, we are better.
I fail to understand that what makes these shares go up. Yeah, we do understand the very basic concept of economics, that is demand and supply. Yes, sir. But having said that, what for example, I don't want to name those companies, but for example, XYZ companies owned by ABC, I mean, look at their market share, look at their market capitalization, look at their value of their shares. I mean, they haven't done any sort of, I would say, I mean, they haven't increased the number of their production plants or their capacity for that matter, but still, I mean, they're skyrocketing. Because unfortunately, in Pakistan, when we talk about the stock market, there are not more than 10 people, sir, who rule it.
Now, very important point for us to understand. In the last 20 years, how many new players have entered into this market? You got the same brokers who are sitting there.
Absolutely.
Same people are there. At the same time, you look at the Indian stock market. Because they are the questions which you need to ask. Is the new blood coming into the market? Sorry, sir. New blood is not coming into the market.
Totally agreed. Moving to ma'am, exports. I mean, now, that is something which really bothers me. And it bothers me because our population is just growing at a very fast rate. I mean, they claim it's well under 2%. But I guess when you talk about when you talk about the demographics, 60% youth, that means there's going to be an explosion, just like the concept of baby boomers in USA post Second World War. I think there's going to be another baby boomer concept coming into Pakistan. And for that matter, all these countries with a younger population. But ma'am, exports, hardly 20 billion. Hardly 20 billion. Dollar rate is not stable. It's around 108, 109 at the moment as we speak. Should have been well under 100. That was the commitment given by the finance minister a few months ago, if you remember. Now, ma'am, value addition, again, same point. There are so many areas. Let's start off from fruit and vegetables. 50% of that fruit and vegetable, which is one of the
being
best in the world,
wasted.
goes waste because of lack of infrastructure. Now, my point is, ma'am, don't you think there are two important factors here? One, product diversification. Forget about textile, enough of textiles now. You've lost the market share, forget it. You can't get it back. You got GSP plus, you couldn't do much about that either.
That, yes.
And cost of doing business, that's the key. You just hit Now, my point is, ma'am, new virgin markets, that's what exactly Chinese are doing. One of the point when you talk about OBOR, and CPEC is one of the lead, I mean, they're looking for new avenues. We are not. We're still dependent on Europe, USA.
US.
And that's it, sir. You sign an FTA with Chinese. Everybody was talking about that. We will be flooded by the Chinese products because we can't compete. They make a lighter worth 20 rupees, that is 20 cents. You can't do that. You can't even make that. Forget it. So, being competitive, your take.
What I believe is what he talked today, Chinese president, is about innovation. Even Chinese market, when they have a full factor production, for instance, 9% GDP or 10% GDP, they now need more innovation.
Oh, yes.
They need more industrial investment. So, if you look at Pakistan, where is the economic planning kind of a thing after 60s?
We have this planning commission of Pakistan now.
But there is no planning in the planning commission where our youth is going, how much graduate you need, in which area you need, and where from this value addition will come. For instance, every company which intends to invest in Pakistan, there must be a component of research and development.
R&D, yes. That's the
when
key,
you
ma'am.
sign
Oh, yes.
MOUs, do we bother for that?
We sign a lot of MOUs, by the way. I
So,
think we're the highest MOU
where is
signing
that,
country.
that component of research and development, where your youth has to be developed, where that innovation has to
Ma'am,
come
it's
to
a
Pakistan?
dot-com generation and they
So-
believe in cut, copy, paste formula.
But
Seriously.
even then, we need a skill. We need a human social capital for that.
It's
matter.
about the mindset, ma'am. You need to develop
It is about your
the
political
mindset.
will. It is about your planning, economic planning. And when it's not there, everything is coming just in a haphazard way, which we are looking at this time.
Now, looking at the exports primarily, they're shrinking, ma'am. Shrinking to an extent that we have lost our market share in terms
Because
of
we
textile.
don't
I mean,
meet
you
the
pick up
performance
any product,
indicators, yeah.
sports goods, for example, made in China, made in Vietnam, joggers, all these top branded companies, Adidas, Fila, Nike, you name it. I'm just giving you one example. Why can't we produce? What's the rocket science and not? We can make an atomic bomb. We can make the best possible missiles because our focus is there. So we have done the best. But just imagine Pakistan producing the best, value-added product. We are hardly producing any juices which we are exporting, ma'am. Only
We are
shan
just
masala you would see
interested-
outside Pakistan being exported.
Like a
in terms of
consumer
food
society,
items.
we are interested in just to import, not to produce. Actually, the value addition will come only when you innovate and produce. And production, you require skill, you require the machinery, you require the reforms.
And you need to
That's
be-
where we are
you
not
need to keep it
interested at
updated
all.
as well,
And that's
because-
why I'm saying that's where the planning comes.
Ma'am, product innovation, I think that's the key.
Yeah.
Before I talk to you, Bittani Sahab, we've been joined in by our correspondent who has gone with the Prime Minister, Mona Alam. She's in Davos. Assalamu alaikum, Mona.
Walaikum salam.
Mona, once again, thank you very much for taking out your time and talking to us. I know that you have a very, very busy schedule with the Prime Minister, but what's the update? Tell us about the engagements of the Prime Minister, those engagements of today.
Yes, today the day has started off with the Swiss president meeting with the Prime Minister, and then it has gone up to the meeting that the Prime Minister had with business leaders. That included prominent figures such as the CEO of PNG, the global chairman for
Procter
PNG,
and
the group
Gamble?
CEO for Standard Chartered Bank, and then there was the CEO for Vimelcom. So there were these prominent names that the Prime Minister had met with, and then for the World Economic Forum, there as well the activities had been similar. He met the Prime Minister of Sweden, he met the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, and now there's this dinner which is huge in I think in totality because it's hosted by the Abraj Group, which has a very prominent presence in Pakistan too now, and of course in more of the Middle East. And yes, so this dinner is hosted by the Abraj Group, and Prime Minister is going to attend that, and as well as there are going to be some prominent MNCs which are going to be a part of that dinner. So these are the activities scheduled for today, and of course, the prior most, the Prime Minister has also met Professor Klaus Schwab, upon whose invitation he is here to attend the World Economic Forum 2017. Professor Klaus Schwab is the executive chairman for WEF.
I know. All right. Now, talking about the investment opportunities, I mean, obviously it is the Prime Minister and the other person, that was General Rahil Sharif, who spoke on the during the seminars on this particular
Right.
occasion. Who else was there with the Prime Minister who was a part of the delegation? Because we have also learned that the IT Minister, Anusha Rahman, she's there as well.
Yes, yes, she's there as well, and we got to speak to her as well. I got to interview her as well for my show in particular, and yes, she's a part of the delegation, and she's representing the emerging information technology sector in Pakistan, and she is to attend some prominent sessions, and of course, the gender gap debate, which is pretty common for World Economic Forum as well, as you know already, Faisal. That part is also being highlighted, and Pakistan is doing a good, I think, this time around to address that concern when it comes to gender gap or the gender parity. Because Anusha Rahman is here, we're also expecting Saira Abdul Tarar, the State Minister for Health,
Health, yes.
to be joining the World Economic Forum because there are 2 more days ahead, that is tomorrow and the day after. And the Minister for Commerce, Engineer Khurram Dastagir, is also expected.
All right. Now, quickly tell us also about the engagement of the former Chief of Army Staff, General Rahil Sharif. Uh, yes, Mona.
Right. He, of course, as you know, he has chaired a session yesterday, and since he's representing the Saudi side now, so that is the side he's representing as of now, not exactly in capacity of Pakistan. Of course, he's a former army chief, and we've seen extraordinary successes in terms of the security situation during his tenure. So he has spoken much of that. He has spoken of how situation in security has gone better and how could intelligence sharing be done in that respect to make it further better. His perspective on that, and of course, regionally combating the common menace of terrorism. He has spoken on that fact, and he has also spoken of certain double standards when it comes to our policies and when it comes to the region's rather approach, the region's approach in terms of security. There are certain double standards, of course, that takes in account the Syria issue, the Iraq issue. Those questions were put up to General Rahil Sharif as well. So that had been also an interesting session for yesterday.
No, last quick comment, Mona, because we know that whenever the Indians get a chance, they always malign Pakistan. And
Yeah.
since I've been to Davos a few times and understand that they'll go after you no matter what, whether it's the Tatas or the Ambanis or the Mittals
Huh.
for that matter. What I'm saying is, because I'm sure they have taken a huge delegation, any development on that front? Have you been to any
Not
session where the
exactly. I
Indians were
don't hear
present?
as such or anything on the international media or neither on the social media, which is much talked of as of now. Yes, but for our side, for Pakistan's perspective, I think the meeting tomorrow scheduled with the Prime Minister of UN Secretary General, that's going to be a talk. And that's going to be a highlighted event in WEF 2017 proceedings and meetings, particularly for the Pakistan's prerogative on Kashmir. So I'm sure that is going to set India back further when it comes to regional issues and when it comes to the regional agenda, which is negative overall.
Well, the Portuguese, I mean, since the new General Secretary of the United Nations hails from Portugal, though he is going to play a very neutral role.
Yes,
but the
yes, exactly. So we are
Portugal has
expected to
also
have a better say in this regard.
yeah, exactly. The Portuguese, they exactly know what the Indians do, because this issue was also
Absolutely, yes.
mentioned by the Prime Minister regarding what is going on in Kashmir when he was having a meeting with the Swiss president. And I'm sure
Yes,
when he's going to meet
yes,
the
yes. The
Secretary
Swiss
General of the United
president as
Nations.
well, yes, they have rather acknowledged Pakistan's effort when it comes to security and the economic turnaround. The Swiss president has appreciated Pakistan on the regional counteract of terrorism, and they have also appreciated
Alright.
Pakistan for hosting about 3 million refugees from Afghanistan. So they well acknowledge the fact, and we've heard the same from the Swiss president as well this time. That was the first meeting the Prime Minister had for today's session and for today's bilateral meetings that he's been doing, and he's
Alright.
still on the go. So
Alright.
we are yet to see the dinner, the grand dinner, which is hosted by Abraj Group, and that is the last activity the Prime Minister is involved in for today. So that
That's
will
correct.
be the last activity, but I think we're all pretty geared up for that. But
Alright.
yes, the
Thank you very
4
much,
hour
Mona.
flag is going to remain in place because that's about 8
Yeah.
p.m. The time here, the local
All right.
time.
Thank you very much, Mona, for your comments, and we'll definitely take you online tomorrow as well. Thank you very
Sure,
much
sure.
once again.
Most welcome.
So moving on to you now, the engagements, obviously, they're important because the Prime Minister has met the head of states and also is scheduled to meet the Secretary of the United Nations. Obviously, when we talk about presenting the case of Pakistan, a lot of issues come under discussion, including the issue of Kashmir. But those are political issues, but we are talking about the economic side. But obviously, those, when you're not stable politically, there are issues. Obviously, anybody who wants to invest in a country needs to see it politically stable. Look at Mahathir Mohamad. He was there for 20 years almost, and that was the reason he grew. People might call him the dictator or whatever, but the point is that at the end of the day, look where Malaysia is. It's a model for us, or maybe Turkey is a model for us. Now, it's another important point. Looking at the potential that Pakistan has, the kind of engagement which we have with the Western world in particular, the changing, I would say, alignments, India getting so close with the US, Pakistan getting closer to Russia for a change, China was always there for us. Post P5+1, Iran is a huge market, so the Chinese, they have an interest via Pakistan. The regional issues would be sorted out. In particular, I'm talking about Afghanistan, because it has a direct impact, as I earlier said, on Pakistan. And then, opening up of the Central Asian states. They are full of energy, and you look at India, look at China, they're energy-thirsty countries. How do you see this entire development now? Do you think we have a chance here?
Mr. Rahman,
If we play our cards rightly, sir.
Mr. Rahman, first of all, mathematics has always been a very horrible and haunting subject, and mathematics from Banday Sahab has, really horrified me. But bringing it to thematic and structural orientation, see, we are dealing with the country which has faced this menace of terrorism. Our geostrategic locations at times becomes our weakness, and at times it becomes
Exactly.
our strength. So we have dealt with this. We were center of attention 20 years back. We became center of attention 10, 15 years back. And we had to deal with those structural world order changes. So dealing with that kind of a country, at the moment, I think expecting that we would be on a path of developmental growth, I think it would be too much. As in, at the moment, we are setting the stage. We are telling the world that now we have dealt with the problem. Our military chief, ex-military chief, is telling the world that, see, we are at this situation. We have this potential. See, our geostrategic location can not only be used for politics, it can be used for economics. We can connect you. We can follow the Singapore model. We can connect Central Asia. We can, the same warm water access has been a point of divergence between these global powers. But the same warm water access is now being a center of opportunity for the world. Even we are saying that in South Asia, great powers should realize the fact that it's not a source of conflict. Referring to India for that matter, referring to robust, aggressive Indian foreign policy patterns, particularly the Modi-ized idea of Indian foreign policy, I think retrospectively it would affect all of us, not only Pakistan, it would affect India as well. So yes, Pakistan is now at the center stage, as in linking it to Central Asia or Iran or Afghanistan for that matter, and Kashmir issue would come to the limelight because now if the world is saying we are interested in this region, the world is coming to the region and a huge economic activity will take place. So one, yes, infrastructural revamping is very important, as my colleague pointed out. Second, one positive optimistic trend for me is that for the last 35 years, we have been witnessing and we have been very worried about the structural orientation of our economics, that we were an aid-based economy particularly. We have no infrastructure, we have no good market access, our figures about exports are not good. You just said that our fruits and vegetables,
That is just one example.
That's
You
just
talk
one
about marble
example.
and granite, that has got a tremendous potential of export.
We produce
You
the world's
start off,
best
sir,
citrus,
you know,
we produce
if
the world's
we-
best cotton, but still we have no access. At times I tell my students that we produce the best football from Sialkot, but we cannot say that, we cannot market it the way it should be.
That has been used in the World Cups.
In the World Cup, it was used in the final. But see, now there is this ray of hope that we have realized, or we are kind of moving from this model of aid-based economy towards an indigenized or towards a market-based economy. Obviously, there would be constraints. Obviously, there are structural issues. Our institutional parameters, our institutional frameworks are not robust. They are not proactive. As ma'am mentioned, that our planning commission and our people at the economic division and economic ministry of economics, they need to rethink and revamp their energies. Fresh blood
As I said, the changing fortunes of time.
fresh blood needs to be brought in, because I'm sorry, the old blood has,
If you talk
new
about innovation
ideas.
and you talk about new ideas,
New
you're talking about
ideas. See,
you need
there
to have
was
fresh
this
people.
person in this African country who brought this idea of, introducing new channels of transportation of, money transfer, keeping aside the general banking channels. That was a great idea. This was a great success. It is coming to Pakistan as well. It was an idea by a youngster. So yes, new ideas need to be addressed, and these hardcore economic realities, these facts and figures which haunts us, they should be kept in mind. Obviously, if we are creating a rhetorical, ephemeral image of CPAC, and if nothing is coming out, that would create further dogmatic, chaotic situation.
Banday sir, there was a statement which was eventually rejected by the Russian authorities, that China has asked Russia to persuade India not to sort of derail the CPEC project. Indians would love to, because this is what their agenda is. I think this is part of their foreign policies too. CPEC, sir, the threats to CPEC, because now it seems, whenever I switch on the television or whenever I get a chance to talk to the government officials, their entire focus is on CPEC. So we have kept all our eggs in one basket of CPEC. And then we have got countries like India, they're not interested. I mean, not interested, forget about being not interesting, but they'll try to derail it. They'll try to make sure that it doesn't take off. What sort of threats do we have, sir, regarding CPEC? Are we actually, is it, because a lot of people do say, like, this is going to be another East India company, I mean, there are so many myths maybe attached to it, sir.
One thing we should learn from the Chinese, I believe, that as you very well said, that don't put all your eggs in one basket. Did Chinese put all their eggs in one basket
No,
when
sir.
they were developing?
No, sir.
Now that's the question, that if I'm talking to Chinese and I find them a very good friend, so why don't I follow their strategy, how they develop their country?
And
Now,
CPEC is one out of the 6 over projects. We have to mind that too.
As a
lot
student of
people do not
political
understand that.
economy, I always believe that it's the politics which lead the economy. It's not the vice versa. You have good politics, you have good economy. Bad
Good
politics
politics means good governance,
Policy.
long-term planning,
The
long-term
point is
vision,
this,
and an
less,
alignment
less
with that.
less enemies, okay? Like the Chinese have done. They have a claim on Taiwan, I mean to say, it is still there, but they didn't make it an issue.
Chinese Taipei, that's what we call it.
Yes, and what is, you know it very well, that they don't recognize each other diplomatically.
They don't.
But Taiwan is one of the major investor in China. They're coming, you will find every week.
80% of the components, whether it's the smartphone or the laptops, come from Taiwan, sir.
You
India
got it
and
now.
China have quite,
Yeah, like you were talking about this exports you were talking about. Now, why all these countries in the last 20 years, they have trumped Pakistan much ahead in exports? What is the wrong? Now, today we need to ask a question that in last 20 years, we were following the wrong politics. Now, if you're talking about that, first you have to accept this point that yes, self-reflection starts from yourself. That yes, this was the wrong politics I was following. These countries are not following that politics. And I'm to say still they have certain strains left of it. Now, all these exports which you are talking about, all these export oriented countries have the foreign FDI coming into those countries. These Far Eastern
That
countries.
gives you a jump start, sir.
Exactly. I mean to say that I don't want to follow the model of the 19th century USA. We are now living in 21st century.
Correct.
Now, it means that my development economics should follow the latest models, how the countries are doing. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. I'm going to follow the same models. So what is important for us, that what should be the right politics? Like you raised the question about this that Russians are coming and they are not telling them, these are meaningless things. The point is this: if you're good enough like Malaysia, which you have given an example, no matter, people are going to come whether you are a dictator or you're not a dictator. The investors are not interested. China is not a democracy. The people are coming because China is not interfering in any country. China don't have any proscribed organization operating in that country. They are totally focused on the economy side. They are pragmatic. They are communists.
Absolutely.
In last 8 years, they have allowed businessmen to become the member of Communist Party. Now we need to study the
That's the
Chinese
approach.
politics, that how these guys are orienting their politics with their economy. Unfortunately.
Totally on the same page.
Exactly. Unfortunately, that trend is not there. We are trying to resolve our economic issues with wrong political approach. Now, no matter how much, the buckets you are going to take out from that well, the well is not going to become clean till that donkey is still there into that well. Now, you need to understand that we need to have a very clear politics. There should be no enemy, no fighting with anyone, no people over here who are going to raise flags against other countries like Chinese have done. They have their claims on South China Sea, they have their claims on Taipei, but you don't find people out there taking out rallies on that. The Chinese know, because we need to do business with Philippines, we need to do business with Vietnam, we need to do business with Taipei. Don't antagonize people out there. Be on the focus. That if we have that approach, your export issues will be resolved, your investment issues will be resolved, your competitiveness issues will be resolved.
Yes. I think we really need to fight on so many fronts. But anyway, Dr. Saiba, thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much, Banday sir. And that's all we have for this hour. I'll see you tomorrow at 8, and tomorrow we'll try to continue the same discussion regarding the Davos as well as the economy. I'll see you tomorrow at 8. Khuda Hafiz.